I'm Cheryl Morris, and this is Karl.
Hi, Karl.
I'll talk later.
You can find our presentation at that QR code or at this web address, so you can follow along.
It'll be bigger in a second, too.
Nice.
There we go.
So if you want to take a minute and get that.
It's not crucial, but we're going to ask for some audience feedback so you get what you want. So yeah, it would help. What's up?
Am I doing this better? I've never used these, so do I need to get
Yeah,
closer?
yeah. You just want to make sure that that's within the square.
Okay.
I think.
Excuse me, everyone.
There you go.
Settled. Connecting, loading.
You can't do that.
Yeah, there we go. That was right.
There's another step here. It's there too.
Yeah, I can move this. Oh, hey, water. Whoa. Not too bad.
What are you pouring water on this table
Yeah,
for?
well, I'm pouring water on my NBD.
Yeah, that's how you ruin the MacBook. No, it wasn't water.
I don't know what happened there.
Okay. So on this slide, we've got a document link that Karl's got open on the Chromebook so we can kind of pay attention to whatever you need while we're presenting. We are flipped class teachers, which means we don't stand up and lecture very often, and so we would much rather have this be really interactive and give you guys whatever you need rather than just standing up here and guessing what you need and talking about whatever we feel like talking about. So you can link it from there. And want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. My name is Karl. I teach 9th grade world history this year. I will have the same kids in 10th grade next year in San Mateo, north of here. What else should I say?
You're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter.
Blog.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of contact information there. And
Yeah, and I'm Cheryl Morris, and I teach 11th and 12th grade English in Moran at Redwood High School. And again, my class website's there, my blog, my email, etc., and Twitter. So we want to take a quick survey and figure out how many of you have heard of flipped learning before. Just a quick show of hands. Okay, how many of you have experimented with it at all in your classroom? A couple. How many of you are like, yes, I am a flipped teacher? No. Okay. How many of you are on Twitter? All of you should be on Twitter. Little sales pitch really quick. Karl and I met on Twitter, and we met Sam, who's streaming our presentation here on Twitter as well. And Twitter has been the most powerful PD for me in my entire career. The last year I've learned more than the first 8 years combined. So teachers, there are amazing teachers on Twitter, including the flipped class community is fantastic. So if you want to get on Twitter, you're not familiar with it, talk to one of us afterwards or Sam, and we will help you get started. Because it's kind of intimidating at first, but there's lots of great conversations you can get yourself a part of. So we're here to talk about flipped classroom. We'll start with the definition. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
sure. The traditional definition of flipped classroom is you are taking the lecture aspect of class and moving that from the classroom, traditionally with this definition via video, into the homework space. So students generally will watch a screencasted lecture about content at home or outside of class, and then come to class ready to do the work of the discipline, be that English or math or science or history. So you're able to focus more on upper level blooms within class, and you move the lower blooms outside of class.
It started with math and science just because that's the easiest to picture, is that you have a lot of content to deliver, you spend a lot of class time delivering the content, and then you ask them to do the homework at home, and they don't have the benefit of having peers around them and the teacher there to support them. So that's where it started in chemistry, and so when history and English teachers came onto the scene, we couldn't quite figure out exactly how that fit for our classrooms. So Karl and I and a couple other people have developed a different definition of flipped learning. But first, I forgot about this, why you should flip your class. Just a couple of quick reasons. Covering more content. I think it's possible to cover a lot more in this model. like Karl said, moving the difficult skills into class and moving the lower level skills outside of class time. Video lectures, I can do a 20-minute lecture in a 7-minute video just because in class there's so many more disruptions and you really are responding to people in the room asking questions and slowing down. And in a video, I can talk incredibly quickly because my students can pause it. I don't have to worry about them stopping to take notes. And it moves much more quickly. And the last thing is building relationships with students. Flipping your class lets you have way more one-on-one interactions with students, where instead of trying to get to all 30 kids in the 10 minutes you have left at the end of class, you have the whole class to work with students. So you build positive relationships and you can build more community in your classroom. There are some limitations.
So with this model of flipped learning, you still are assigning homework, so you're giving kids work to do outside of the classroom. It still involves lectures, so there is direct instruction. And again, I'm not trying to, I still do a little bit of both of these, so I'm not trying to condemn them, but there are people who say you shouldn't flip because you have to do homework, and you shouldn't flip because lecture is bad pedagogy. And there are issues if you are assigning videos as homework for students who don't have tech access at home.
And that's a problem that we have solutions to. That's usually the number one, like, I can't flip because all of my students don't have access at home. There are ways around that, like most of them have a TV, you can burn a lesson to DVD, they can take that home, put stuff on flash drives, send that home. They can view it on smartphones or even inside the classroom. So that's something that a lot of people get stuck at that we have solutions for if you want to hear more about that. But it doesn't have to be a limitation for why you flip.
And if you get stuck at something we're saying, please interrupt us.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So there's also a lot of people who say, I don't know why I would flip. I don't do a lot of direct instruction. I'm more inquiry or project-based learning. And the traditional flip model doesn't necessarily include these things at first. Often later down the road, teachers do add them, but it's hard to fit a PBL model in a very traditional flip where you're doing videos every night and class time doing practice. Do you have a question? All right, so this is our definition. It includes two other people who aren't here, Crystal Kirch in Southern California and my teaching partner, Andrew Thomason, in North Carolina. And we have a quick video that will kind of show you, this is Crystal's video that made with TechSmith, just show you what flip class looks like in a math class.
Oh, the video dagger.
Advanced.
Sorry about that.
Important change. This is supposed to be classwork. This is supposed to be homework. I want you to flip them. Why might I want you to flip them? My name is Crystal Kirch, and I teach high school math here at Cyberstrom High School in Santa Ana, California. How'd we do on this one? You all right? Excellent. When we're talking about math homework and kids are going home and they are just struggling because they completely forgot. It made sense in class. I got it, that makes sense. And then they go home and completely forget it. They struggle, they get frustrated, they end up not doing it. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, after doing a little bit of research online, I came across the idea of the flipped classroom. Wasn't exactly quite sure what I wanted mine to look like when we started, but I decided to start just by doing my lectures at home instead of in class.
Our homework, we do it in class, so we have like people help us with it that know what they're doing, so like going home and asking my mom who has no idea what she's doing. But once we started doing the videos, I was like, okay, I can rewatch these videos, they're there for me, and whenever we have tests, I would like go rewatch the videos the day before, and then everything would be so much easier.
The 45-minute lesson that I give in class is between an 8 and 15-minute video lesson. In class, there are so many distractions. There's kids going to the office, passes coming from the office, kids asking questions, which isn't bad, but there's sometimes a lot of questions going on, and then kids are sitting there, come on, let's move on, or kids are like, oh, I'm completely lost. They need time to process it. They need to be able to say, okay, Mrs. Kirch, pause, I need to think about this, I need to see what you did. And on the video, they're able to do that. And then they have a whole 54-minute period to ask questions about it. I have them working in discussion groups, talking about it together, answering each other's questions, working on problems together. I'm able to pull out small groups sometimes and work with kids that maybe need a little bit of, 1-on-5, 1-on-8 instruction. Okay, what concepts did we have the most trouble with? I've seen between a 2 and 8% class average increase on the chapter test since I started flipping. I've seen an increase in the number of students getting A's and B's and a decrease in the number of students getting B's and F's.
Yeah, I have an A now. Yeah. It's made my grade go from a D to a B. I've never had anything higher than a D in math before. So it's really helped a lot.
When you see those students talking about math and understanding math at a deeper level than you have in the last 5 years of great students that you've had, you know that something is working. My name is Crystal Kirch. I am a math teacher. I am a wife, and I love going home after a long day of teaching, just reading and relaxing, and also making flip classroom videos with Camtasia for math.
So what she's been able to do in her classroom is take all that low-level instruction out and instead use the time where students have conversations where they really make sense of the math. She does what's called a WISC, which gives her an idea of what they need to review and what groups they need to be in for when they review in class. She does a lot of higher order thinking skills through the discussion and through the group activities. And so she's been able to take a class where they were getting very little practice in the class and make it all about the practice. And it's been really effective for her. I know we're moving fast. Questions?
You said she uses a what? A whisk?
Yeah, we have a link at the end of the presentation. But basically, it's a Google form that her kids fill out when they watch a video. It stands for Watch Summary Question. And so they watch it, they take notes, they write a summary of the video, and then they write their questions out. So she has a really good sense of like what they're understanding and what they're not. And they can also link to the results of that same survey so that when they submit it, they can see what everyone else has said. So they can check and see how far off they were, what they need to work on, or who they need to work with in the next class period. Other questions?
Cheryl, one of the comments that was left on hey, we would love to hear about this during the session was how much time we spend making videos. And just because it's come up, I figured I'd take a swing at it. So the general rule of thumb is a minute to a minute and a half per grade level, which means with 9th graders, a 9 to a 13.5-minute video is like the suggested length of the video. Mine are never that long. I try to keep them under 7, and I can bang out. I don't do. I mean, you know, if I don't make a ton of mistakes, I can do, you know, a 7-minute video from I turn on Camtasia and record it to it's been uploaded to YouTube. I can do that in about 20 or 25 minutes. I'm not doing a ton of crazy special effects, but for me, I want to get it done, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Excuse me.
And I know Crystal's videos, she does one-take videos, so generally they're between 7 and 10 minutes, and that's how long it takes. She just goes through one take. If she makes mistakes, no big deal, and then just uploads through Camtasia. I take a little bit longer because I edit and I do collaborative video with another guy where we are talking about things, and when you're talking through things, process, it takes a little bit more time to edit down to the core essentials. So I spend, for a 10-minute video, I spend more like a couple hours, but we don't do video that often. We do maybe a video every week, probably less than that most of the time. Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't be comfortable with my students going on YouTube because they're 6th graders. Are there other options for posting videos?
Absolutely. If you have, what is it, under 5 minutes, jing.com will let you go through there. Jing.
Jing.
You can also run them through LMSs. Like, I used to put my videos on Edmodo.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah, and so you can actually, through Camtasia, through any program, I often upload the videos to Google Drive and then link them through Camtasia, because if you go through Google Drive, it plays like YouTube without being on YouTube.
What is the word you're saying? Camtasia?
Camtasia is the editing program.
And that's only on Mac?
No, it's not MPC.
And they are, without
like
sounding
Camtasia.
absolutely like a TechSmith salesperson, they have a spectacular tech team. I've run into some issues when something hasn't worked, or I crashed my computer and needed to buy a new one, and they've been super responsive. So
This is what it looks like. You just bring your video files in, and you can make edits to audio, video, everything from here. For Mac, I think it's $99. It's more for PC, but it's really easy to learn.
Is it different than iMovie?
Yeah, iMovie, I find Camtasia to be way more intuitive than iMovie, but iMovie is free if you have a Mac, so that would be fine too. I like Camtasia because it does a lot of stuff. for
Other things about your YouTube concern, I embed, like YouTube's blocked at my school, so I embed all of my videos. I upload them to YouTube, but just embed them in my Google site, so you don't have all of the stuff around them. So the kids just go, they know to go to my site, so they're not like searching around. It's like, okay, we're in World War I, I'm going to go to World War I need notes 2, so I'm going to go to notes 2. But Cheryl, you mentioned, did you mention screencast.com?
I didn't.
Okay, yeah, screencast.com, when you have a Camtasia account, you can upload directly to YouTube or to screencast.com. There's Vimeo. Cheryl's Google Drive trick is really awesome as well, where you can just upload a video directly to Google Drive, and like she said, plays like YouTube, but none of the ads or anything else like that.
And this is my course website, so I actually embed everything on my course website so students can get the videos they need through here. And I use Show Me, which is another iPad app. And I embed the original playlist too, which is really nice, especially for video.
Another question, since we're talking vids now, how can you ensure homework is done? Most kids seem to skip watching the videos. We were so in our different definition of flipped learning, which part 1 is emphasis on higher order thinking skills. Again, I'm not trying to cast judgment on anybody in the room. I don't like homework. I don't think kids should have to do homework ever, period. You spend 6.5 hours a day at school, go be a kid. Again, I'm not trying to push that on anybody. My kids don't do homework. I design my units so if a kid shows up and works for, okay, even I have 15-minute class periods. If they show up and they work hard for 40 or 45 minutes, they'll never have homework in my class, which means that they're moving self-paced, kind of asynchronously through the unit. So I have different kids at different places at different times. So it's not a matter of you have to go do this video tonight in order to participate in class. It's this is what's next for you. Go take care of that, and then you'll just move forward to the next part of the unit. Other solutions to that problem are, I mean, you know, if you have tech in your classroom, it's like, okay, you 5 kids didn't do, if you're assigning video as homework, you 5 kids didn't do the homework, so you're going to go back and you're going to miss the first 10 minutes of class because you need to go catch up on, you know, the skills that you're going to need in order to participate in today's class.
Yeah, and I think it's, not doing homework is a behavioral issue, and you treat it like a behavioral issue no matter what the homework is. So video, the only complication is making sure they have access to it. And as long as they have access to it, you know, I know that Crystal, when kids weren't watching videos, she's done everything from parent calls to having kids come in at lunchtime or after school to do it with her. So it's, again, it's a behavior that would be addressed in any other way that you would normally address a behavior in your classroom.
But I guess my reason for asking that is I tried this with the social studies, and I find that the kids who are going to do it, and the kids who don't are even further behind. So it was like I'd say, okay, so we're going to go home, and they'd watch a video and they'd blog about it. And then you expect, with the expectation that they come in kind of with this background so we can actually do the activity. But then the ones who don't do it are now not only behind, you know, in the lesson, they don't know what we're talking about, and so they can't do their questions anyways, you know. So I was just wondering how.
Yeah, that would be a reason I would move asynchronous, like Karl's class. That it gives the kids time to do in class, the kids who need to be doing it in class, and the other kids who do it at home. Then the kids who are watching in class are on the video, and you're with the kids who already have done that and can give them the practice.
Yeah.
And if the goal is they've acquired this much content, both groups of kids are acquiring the content. This group of kids is just getting the extra practice and the discussion and the deepening the skills.
I think the other thing is I try to provide whenever I can. Some kids say I love the screencast, and some kids are like, they just don't work for me. So whenever I can find a web resource or textbook pages or some other secondary source that can fill that void, I think that helps deal with both the tech issue and the, I mean, it's still, I guess you're still assigning it as homework, but it's kind of another way if it's like, oh, I don't want to do video because I'm grounded from the computer or something.
Yeah.
It's a way around that.
Right. And often, I actually use class time sometimes to show videos, and the reason I do that is it gives us an opportunity to engage through a back channel. So we'll have a Today's Meet site, we'll watch the video on the board, even sometimes a video of me reading the book we're reading. And we'll have a back channel on our computers or on their mobile devices or whatever, and we're having a discussion about it as it's being read. Which it sounds like it wouldn't work, but I've found it really, really effective that instead of the kids sitting there getting like confused and just kind of tuning out after 5 minutes because there's so many things they don't understand, I'm able to answer questions immediately because I don't have to read it because it's a video, and they can answer each other's questions, and I know where to stop and make sure we clarify. So that's been really cool too. again, it's about, well, I think the next one is best use of face-to-face time, which is essentially figuring out what would be the most beneficial thing to do when I have all of my students together to help each other. The teacher is there, peers are there, and things like discussion. They can't go home and have a discussion unless you use some kind of online tool like Moodle or Edmodo, but they're all guaranteed to be in the same room at the same time, so why not use that face-to-face time to do that rather than the lower level content? We've got 2 videos here. One is Karl's class, which is the bottom one. This one is a biology teacher that we work with from
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, thank you. I'm not going to make you listen to the songs that they chose to go in their video, but just so you can see, they're both time-lapse. My favorite thing about this video is you can't even tell who the teacher is for quite a while.
Lindsay's short.
Yes.
Glad we worked in a short show.
Yeah, thanks for that.
And in my video, I'm a little easier to see because I'm way taller than the kids. But I mean, I think that it can be confusing. Like, what am I looking at? And I think the point for me is I just walk around and talk to kids all day. Literally, I spend 50 minutes. What's going on? You have questions? You're good? Okay. What's going on? Yeah, you're not really doing what you need to do. What's next for you? Okay, great, yeah, great. And so I know, let's come back. I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm going to come back to you in 3 minutes after I talk to a couple more kids and make sure you're moving forward. Yeah.
I think I have 2 probably difficult questions. First, do you assess them right at when they come to school, so you know they went through your material? If most of them went through it, then you can assume that you can go on the higher level. If most of them don't, what do you do?
Well, because I'm not assigning homework, it's where are you? Okay, let's work on, I mean, for history, it's I'm going to give you just the bare bones of the content that you need.
But
so,
how do you know they view it online?
I asked to see their notes, and there's usually a couple questions at the end of a video that I want them to ask. So I look at that. I can do it with a Google form. I can do it several other ways. But once they've shown me that they can do that, they just move on to whatever's next. You said you had 2 hard questions.
The second one is that, okay, so what's the real benefit?
The real benefit. What is important to you? Are you worried about grades? Are you worried about student engagement? Are you worried about what the classroom feels like?
How about you? When at the end of the semester, when you ask, a teacher asks herself, this is fun, this is engaging, so what is real benefit? How do you answer that?
How long do you have? So I'm not trying to be rude. For me, I have never had more fun teaching. I think my strength as a teacher is I love talking to kids, teenagers, 9th graders. I know that sounds weird, but I get to walk around and I get to talk to kids every day. For me, I love that. I've been able to, from a skills side, wow, this student really struggles with reading. And I'm able to pick that up so much faster because all I'm doing is I'm walking around, I'm talking to kids literally the entire period. I'm identifying holes in their skills way more quickly. In terms of measurables, I'm not proud to say that in my class 10% of kids used to fail, but you know, it is what it is. I went down from 10% to 2.5% of my students failed first semester going asynchronous. In terms of class feel, I mean, I have kids who don't have a first period who come hang out in my first period history class and do work and just kind of hang out. And why would you go to history class twice in a day? That I've never seen a kid do that before. They like the independence of me trusting them to have devices out and to use devices in a way that's appropriate for school and to manage the pace of their learning. Yeah.
To answer the same question, I would say as an English teacher, the one thing I never got to do well was have one-on-one writing feedback with kids.
Stole that.
So I'm the English teacher, I get to talk about it. I had one-on-one writing conferences with every student in my writing class, and at the end of the semester I was able to give them a long 2-page feedback on everything they'd written that semester and where their strengths were, what they were able to work on later, and they said that was one of the most powerful things that they'd had in an English class, because not only was it just like some red ink on a page that they got handed back and threw away, there weren't grades for essays, they just wrote and then revised, and we had one-on-one conferences, so they got so much feedback that I never would have been able to do before I flipped. Yeah.
So this may be something you answer later, but when you have students all doing work at their own pace, how do you do grades? Do you have tests? Do you come up, because I actually have a class right now where everybody's on their own pace and the grades are kind of a disaster, but I have to do them.
So my next hurdle is I need to figure out project-based learning, because then I feel way more confident in getting rid of tests. In terms of what I do, I was really communicative with the parents at the beginning of the year that the class was a little bit different, and that I have suggested deadlines for each part of the unit, and when a student doesn't finish work by a suggested deadline, I enter a provisional 0. So at the beginning of the semester, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I have 3% in history. It's like, okay, finish the work and you'll be fine. So I'll enter provisional 0s for kids who haven't earned the right to take the test. I'll enter provisional 0s for students who haven't finished doing the thinking for the unit yet. And then once they finish that, they get, the credit that that they would normally get.
So maybe it's just, so I do the same thing, but I have kids who mostly have already failed algebra a couple times. So I now have kids who are in like chapter 1 all the way through kids who are in chapter 8.
Yep.
So the provisional 0s are still there and they will never finish probably. I mean, I hope they will, but that's what I'm worried about. If I go do this with all of my classes, then I'm afraid there'll be a group of kids that just never get past chapter 1. And maybe I just have a different class.
No,
I
absolutely.
think that's a concern in any self-paced environment. That's one good reason to move to standards-based grading, I would argue, I'm going to say too, is that instead of grading the completion of work, you're grading where they are in relation to the standard, and X number of standards needs to be done by this date, and that's what you're assessed on. And so, I mean, my grades, I'm very non-traditional with grades in a very grade-driven school. I don't grade essays, I don't give tests. It's mostly based on projects, but not on like the finished project, but on the process to the project. So my kids made character analysis videos. We graded their analysis, they created the rubric, and they graded one another with how well the analysis had come out and their use of evidence and whatnot. And that process was what we graded, what goes in the grade book. So I may only have 5 or 6 grades in the grade book for the first 9 weeks of school, but those are kind of standards-based grades in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do a similar thing. It's standards-based, and yeah, I mean, I'm finishing. Kids should be finishing the World War I unit right now, and I have a couple kids who haven't finished the imperialism unit, and that's a problem.
And your
because
district is supportive of that.
my administrator is.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you guys about what happens in my classroom, and you now know more about what goes on in my classroom than most of the people I work with.
Yeah.
And so, it's this little bubble, and that's why I think Cheryl talked about Twitter, is that there's this group of people that I can talk to. But yeah, I think for me, and this is going to sound heretical, content here, skills here. And some of them are content-specific skills, and some of them are like time management skills. So if you don't get through the content, I try to work the way I assess you in such a way that as long as I'm seeing those big skills, which you demonstrate through bigger projects, and sometimes, yes, you're forced to write, but I work hard to make sure that where they're demonstrating those skills will come in, and that if you get through less than all of the content, like, okay, I'd love for you to get through all of it, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world, and now I'm probably going to get fired because that just went out on YouTube. But I think
Nobody
that's
watches what I do. Don't worry about it.
awesome. This is the guy with over 1,000 Twitter followers. So yeah, I think that's the emphasizing of skills and just being at peace with kids not getting content. Because when I was a more traditional teacher, there were plenty of kids who had no idea what was going on. And so, great, you understood 2 of the 3 units really well and demonstrated all of the skills. I feel confident saying you got enough out of the class for me to give you a passing grade.
I haven't had any kid fail my class since I flipped. And that's not because I necessarily changed the way I grade. It changed my classroom enough that instead of students, half of them not doing the essay or whatever, all of my kids last year, final semester, took the final assessment and passed with a 70% or above and turned in the final essay. So there wasn't anyone who didn't demonstrate the skills they needed to, and it's been the same this year. I haven't had anyone fail this year, and most of it has been due to they do the work because I'm there to help them with it. They understand it, they help each other, and it's part of the classroom community. If someone's not doing the work, it's like, dude, stop. Why aren't you doing this? Oh, okay, I'll sit down and do it. So there's a lot of peer pressure also.
And you're finding this in your community, that's all levels of schools. I'm just thinking about, I have some issue too, but if you have a much lower performing school versus a high performing school, the community is quite different. And I'm wondering how this flipped learning, it just, it
Yeah.
seems like it's gonna be a high
That's-
performing school thing. But
That's
I-
my class. I've got kids with 2 parents who have PhDs from Stanford and kids who came from Mexico, 2 years ago, who are
Yeah.
reading, multiple grade levels behind. And so I don't have a strictly, just low performing students. I have the entire range, and it's worked for.
It's closing the gap, do you think?
I think it is closing the gap. More kids are passing, and more kids are getting C's, which is important for CU, CSU eligibility.
And last year I was in San Lorenzo, which is just north of here between Hayward and Oakland, and when I flipped last year, that's when I had no one fail my class. I went from first semester, I had 19 kids fail my class, to second semester, same kids, no one failed. And then I went to Redwood High School, which is one of the super high performing, like, top 50 schools and whatever, and it works there equally well. Probably, I think it works a little bit better given what I'm doing now. I think the more traditional flip works a little bit better with my kids last year. But yeah, it works at both places. Yeah, no.
Okay, I didn't know if you were looking at me. How long did it take? You come to a conference or you hear about it and then the next week you're flipped? Or was it something you decided to do over the summer and you planned it for the first semester? What was your first steps and how long did it take?
I went to an Ed Tech meeting in my district in January of last year, and the next day I got an iPad from the district and started making videos and flipped like that. And I thought flipped learning was crazy the first time I saw it. I'm like, no way, our kids don't have tech access. I don't know how this would work, but it was just one of those things that wouldn't stop kind of playing in my mind, like, actually maybe this could work. So I started with it immediately, and I jumped in pretty full force within a couple of weeks, and then over the summer, I did a lot of planning for the following year. I'm still, like, it's been a struggle to keep up with content, because I'm teaching 6 new classes this year. We're on a semester model, so 3 one semester, 3 the next semester. And it's been a struggle, but I kind of like being thrown in over my head. I like kind of not knowing what I'm doing, because I think it keeps me connected to my kids, that they don't know, they have the same feeling when they're in a class and they're a little bit lost. And it reminds me also to kind of monitor the learning process and make sure I'm not just like bombarding them with new stuff. So
For me, I got, if you had over a half hour for the first Ramsey Musalem reference, you were the winner. Sorry, that's an inside joke. Which is funny to nobody else. Yes, we're nerds. We talk online. I learned about flipped learning at the beginning of not this school year, but last school year. I spent a semester trying to figure out what it looked like in a history class, a semester experimenting with kind of what the pushing the lower level blooms outside of class, focusing on more higher level inside of class. And then over this past summer and was kind of researching what it could look like, because I knew with a 2-year loop with students, I was getting new students this year, and I could go kind of all in, if you will, with something new. And so it was kind of a year-long process with, thinking and then experimenting and then really hammering it out over the summer and then exploding it this year. So.
other questions?
Ooh, we're stuck.
Okay, so we talked about this a little bit, but I have a video here of my students talking about what it's like to be in my class. And so I wanted you to hear, like, we can talk all we want, but really in the flip class what's important is the kids. And so I wanted you to hear from them what they thought about the class they're in now.
I feel like everything that we do in this class is pretty abstract and it gets you thinking in a different way. You're about the students kind of growing their own ideas.
For a class like this, or you don't need to use class time to learn topics. I feel like class time is better to reinforce topics. Now that we have the technology where teachers can put up what we need to learn online, and that's so much more useful to me that I have time to go at my own pace while learning something and then coming in, having a discussion about it or doing something.
I feel like in college, it's not going to matter as much about what you already know, but it's going to be more about your ability to learn, your ability to absorb new knowledge. And I feel like a lot of the way we learn, they just want us to absorb knowledge, but we're not really learning how to properly learn. This class is making an effort it's making moves that I've never seen before in high school. We're helping teach you how to learn in a different way, opposed to just get a good grade on this test, do your homework, worksheets that you don't need anything, and you'll probably copy it off your friend or something like that. Where in this class you're actually learning stuff, you know.
It's very like student directed, like we control like the discussions and like the essays, like what we want to talk about. Is we really feel like your ideas are being heard.
I feel like I'm learning more in this class where like the ideas are my own, and so I'm engaged and interested in these ideas as opposed to something that's just like a worksheet. It's just a more engaging way of being taught.
I really think I'm engaging with the material more than any other class I'm in right now.
Yeah, like past English classes, I literally never read the book, and it was like spark notes, and I did whatever I could to just get an A on the paper or the test or whatever. Well, like this class, I'm like actually reading all the books, and they're like interesting to me. You're learning in your own way.
Okay, well, I like the way the time is managed, like that we're able to read in class.
Like more genuine learning than like forced upon us.
True.
I like the difference between other classes.
Yeah, and I feel like I learned just as much or more in this class than any of the other ones. And because we're not doing pointless work. The fact that we have a little more freedom, it kind of makes me more motivated to do things. And like, I just feel like I get the most out of this class.
I can ask questions, I can have my own opinion and have my own mind.
You kind of can interpret like your life into what you're doing, and I don't know, I actually like, I'm super engaged.
It's not that simply we're reading books that we kind of like, it's also we're reading them in a way where everyone can go somewhat at their own pace and comprehend it at their own will.
Well, and it's like everything we do, there's like a point to it, and like it makes me feel more adult. Like this class makes me feel like I actually have my responsibilities, and like
the weight of an adult is kind of put on your shoulders because you're told to form your own opinion and discuss it. It's not like we're being told this is what we're supposed to do, which is what most
this is what that
do.
means. Like this is what this means, and like what you think is wrong. Like this is not.
Well, I think it's about developing your skills as a reader and writer, being able to draw connections as you read.
What do you feel like you develop your skills?
I have a little bit, man. I probably started here and today, you know. It's up here a little bit, and hopefully it'll get better.
So, I think what you hear a lot from them is that they really do feel like they're the ones who are being responsible for their learning, which is a big thing in the flip classroom. And why is it? There we go. So we talk about moving to a student-centered approach because really the point should be the kids should be the ones responsible for the learning. If I'm the one doing everything, I'm the one doing the learning too. And so I think a lot of teachers have been trained to do everything and the kids don't do anything other than take notes or take tests. And this really pushes them, like, I have them make decisions. Like they said, they got to choose the book we read. They got to choose how we read it. So instead of taking it home, which does not work at our school, even though it's high performing, they don't do the reading. This is, almost all of my kids said this is the first time I've read the whole book because we got to choose that we could read it in class or read it at home. So we built class time for that. And that's about making the best use of face-to-face time. The kids needed to read in class, so that's what we do. And it takes a little bit more time, but it means that they can all engage in the conversation rather than the 5 kids who read the Spark Notes and don't really understand it anyway. So, anything else?
This is a hard transition to make. With my 9th graders who've been in the system, I mean, these are kids who are raised on Nickleby. They are used to, I am here, you are there, and I have, I mean, what Cheryl said, I am in charge of the pace and the progression of the learning. In your question, it's dead on. I mean, there are kids who struggled, and there are more of my kids who really struggled with that freedom are making strides this semester. But it is difficult, and I spent 6 weeks progressing from I am here, you are there, into and now we are all together. But even with all of that time first semester, there were still a lot of kids who really, really struggled. And there still are some students who are struggling. So it's not an easy transition.
And it's something that we found the hard way. I think Karl did it right way more than we did. That really, you can't start total asynchronous self-paced. You just can't do it. You can't start a year at project-based learning and inquiry and all in. You have to kind of like wean them off of the crack of direct instruction in classrooms. And you like that, yeah.
Out on Twitter right now.
Thank you, Sam. And it really does, like I've had them since January, we switched semesters. And it's taken a while of doing class the traditional way and starting to take steps toward giving them more and more responsibility. Because it just doesn't work to say to kids, okay, I know you've done this your whole life, now we're going to do everything different. They freak out and they have no idea what's going on. And my kids, as you can see, are fairly well spoken and they're smart, they're 11th and 12th graders, but they don't know how to learn the way that I want them to. Yeah.
How have your parents taken it?
Great. They think it's amazing because they are used to...
In the initial phase when you all...
Yeah, back to school night, I think both of us had the same experience, back to school night. The parents
I got a standing
saw...
ovation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a lot of parents say to me, what you were talking about is how I hoped my kids would be educated, but they haven't been in the past. I had one parent complaint, but it was more because I wasn't teaching Ayn Rand. And yeah, that's the only parent complaint I had all year. I had 300 students this year. So, and in a very active parent community where they will tell you if they don't like something.
I think for me, what helped with that was going in, having thought about it all summer, and being really clear. This is how my class is different. This is why my class is different. So they knew. Okay, yeah, I hear it. And then being proactive with, we talked about the provisional zeros, like you're a little bit behind, telling parents these are going to be entered. Don't worry, they can go away. I still get some emails, but that number has gone way down from first semester with, oh no, your student's a little bit behind. You could ask them to do some history homework for the first time all semester, and then they'll get caught up and they should be good to go. So, yeah. There are a couple questions here. Do we want to take a swing at those before we move forward? How often do you find yourself going back and updating, redoing previous year's videos versus reusing?
I did use my night videos from last year. I pretty much made all new ones this year. Over the summer I met Andrew Thomason through Twitter, and he and I now team teach, even though he's in North Carolina and I'm here. So I kind of started from the beginning this year. I know Crystal redid her videos from this time last year. Because she didn't like the way that, when you're first making videos, it takes you way longer than it will once you're really good at it. I think I can bang out a 7-minute video if I really want to in 15, 20 minutes, and I'm much quicker with it. But yeah, I've used some, not many.
Go.
Generally, from the teachers I've talked to who do flipped instruction, most of them are making new videos all the time. Like, I will change a video slightly from first block to third sometimes, but the video is kind of an ongoing part of the class dynamic, so you're making the video in response to your students' needs, and oftentimes I'll talk directly to certain students in the video, and everybody knows everybody else, so they'll be like, oh yeah, so-and-so wouldn't be paying attention right now. I mean, it's just part of the ongoing dialogue of the class, and if you treat that like a worksheet in a file cabinet, so will they.
The other thing about that is, I'm doing primarily content videos. There's some tech skills videos, and I'm just starting to get into skills videos, but I'm really excited. I'm going to work with a history teacher this summer and build some historical thinking and literacy skills videos as well. So I think that's where I'm going to be pushing into creating new videos versus reusing old ones. I already have ones from the beginning of the year. It was like, that one was horrible. I didn't emphasize the right things. I had to go back and do that when I reteach this. So, yeah.
I have a question. When I, Edu Creations or Dose, whatever, thank you. Is that it? Are you saying, when I think video, is it you're sitting here, hi everyone, blah, blah, blah? Are you saying, okay, here's my whiteboard? Are you saying this is on a PowerPoint and you're, what do you mean by I have a video that I put up and that's what my students, that's...
All of them. Yeah. For me, if it's content, sometimes it's just me over PowerPoint, which isn't spectacular, but again, 5 minutes, let's get out, let's get in. I just did one, we're talking World War I, so I just did one where I just drew up the trenches on the board and talked about the progression of World War I battle with dry erase markers.
Oh, okay.
The ones that I want to move into are, I think we're going to be using Jarnal to annotate on PDFs as we talk about kind of what we're doing with the annotations to do the skills.
And I use two things. I use Show Me, because I've got on that first before Edu Creations or anything, and I'm a master teacher on there now, so I kind of have a stake in it. So those are my Show Me videos, but then I use Camtasia, and these are the other ones. So this is not a
This is Camtasia?
This is made through Camtasia, yeah. The one that I just showed you is also Camtasia. But it has both me and my co-teacher on the screen at one time. And so that's the majority of my videos now, is that way. But the show me ones are way faster, and that's how I started to get used to it. I think putting your face on video is a lot more intimidating at first.
Nobody needs to see this.
That's what I thought. But actually, the kids respond really well to seeing me on the video. So even I have ones of me reading like The Great Gatsby, and I try and put my picture there as I'm reading it because they respond to it much better.
Eyeballs drive engagement.
Yes.
If they feel like you're looking at them, then they feel like you're looking at them.
Good to know.
Eyeballs, I don't have Twitter open.
That's a good question.
Cheryl, another question. Roughly what proportion of videos do you use in your class are made yourself versus from another teacher, and does a general repository of screencasts even exist, or do you have to know the right people? I'm going to tackle question 2. One of my special skills is I don't know the right people, but I have a good memory for, like, yes, this person teaches